guys, welcome back to the channel. It is warm. It is like 40 degrees outside here in Melbourne and I am slowly dying. We're here in the fish room regardless. It's humid, it's warm, my fish are living their best lives. I am not, but we're gonna build a pleco tank today. I've got my L397s. I've had them for a little bit now. I had them in the house because they went into our original tank that got this whole thing started. It's time to get them out with the plecos so I can get some babies happening, because I do have some females that are showing interest in the male and wanting to get some eggs going. So, exciting times. Let's build a pleco playground. These guys are wood eaters. It's gonna be really interesting. Let's get started. Starting off, I'm just using the black gravel that was actually in our original tank. It's just a porous lava stone. It is a rougher gravel, so I wouldn't be putting cories on this gravel, but for these plecos, it's fine. They were already on it. We've had no problems with it whatsoever. It is already full of beneficial bacteria and live nutrients, so I'm just going to reuse it within this tank. With this setup, I'm going to be using a sponge filter. Now I'm keeping these fish in my fish room, so that is heated. I keep all the tanks at around 24 degrees, so if you are setting a tank up for these plecos, you will need a heater for it. And I have already picked out some pieces of wood for this tank, including this dried branch that I actually found, and another piece. Now, these plecos do eat wood, so these pieces of wood will not last the way that they are now. I tried a few different ways of placing this piece. I wanted to mimic sort of like a riverbed with a piece of tree that has fallen in and degraded into the water. And when I found this piece, it was covered in bark. I debarked it and I boiled it just to get any of the bacteria or anything off it, and just to clean it up for the fish, of course. So boil it to release tannins and things like that. So this one shouldn't release tannins. I wouldn't be surprised if it does, but I did boil it and soak it for quite a while before I'm using it in a tank here. What I basically did is I've broken off extra branches and I'm just re-gluing them in the way that I want them to be. So they are like sort of more of the shape and structure that I prefer in the tank, trying to get that sort of tree branch or tree root look through the tank. I'm also adding in this second piece of wood. Now, this one is actually hollow all the way through, so it does form like a natural cave, which is perfect for these plecos. Because they eat wood, I wanted to add a little bit extra for them, something definitely a little bit more dense for them to chew on. So this one I found and I thought it was absolutely perfect for them. So again, I did the same thing. I debarked it, boiled it. I did make sure that both these pieces were completely dry and for a while before I went ahead and started the process of getting them ready for the tank. That is really important. You do not want to put live wood in a fish aquarium because it will rot and foul your water. So this is perfect. They are dried pieces of wood, definitely dead, and I just went ahead and got them ready and popped them in there. Now, no riverbed would be complete without some river rocks, so I'm just placing them where I think that they would fall naturally. I am adding some smaller rocks as well, so I just use these larger rocks as a base and adding some smaller ones, and then I'm going to go in with some detail rocks as well. I used a few different kinds of gravel for this, some really small pea gravel. I also went in with some larger gravel rocks just to give it a nice variety of sizes and textures. So just different things like that, adding in where I think that the rocks would fall and how it would break apart, stuff like that. So if you look at like a natural river or a natural riverbed, you'd never see one kind of rock and nothing else. Like usually it's kind of gritty and dirty and there's all different kinds and all different colors, and what's really what I'm trying to emulate here. Now that I'm happy with my rocks and my detail rocks, I'm going to add in some spawning caves for these guys. Now, like most plecos like to spawn in caves, at least the ones that I own, so I have an unlimited supply of them because I can't help myself and keep buying them. And these are L numbers, so I'm giving them a range of different caves to spawn in. I have one male that is going in this tank, and he will choose the cave that he likes the most. I'm starting with a larger cave to go in the middle here, which I do think my larger female will prefer. Now, my females do like to go in and out of caves all the time. Some of them prefer to stay inside the wood and around, and some like to go into the caves. Then I'm gonna go with a smaller cave in the center here as well, which I'm propping up with some rocks just because I wanted different sort of levels for these caves to sit on, make them a little bit more interesting for them. And finally, this square cave. Now, like I said, I just want to give them a lot of variety so he can choose which one he prefers to show off to the girls with. So, okay, now that I'm happy with my rock placement, I decided that my tree branch was not in the right position. I kind of recommend doing this sort of stuff when you're building a tank. Like, step back, have a look at it, you know, work with what you have, and if you decide that you actually don't like it, change some things. I mess around with the branch quite a bit, trying to figure out where I want it. I decide that I need to glue it better than what I have done. So I ended up gluing it with a different super glue. I also used a little bit of filter floss just behind. You won't see it, just to give it a little bit more surface area to glue to, so that is nice and strong now. I end up taking this out, re-gluing it in a different way, and popping it back in, which I'm so happy and thankful that I did that, because it just gives it a little bit more reach over the tank and fills in some of those gaps. I'm going to plant most of this tank out with just Java fern. All of these plants came out of the tank that I actually deconstructed, so it's the same tank that I took the gravel out of. Because these are plecos, like, they will dig and kick their tails and move things around, so I'm not really planning on planting anything within that substrate. Now, I mostly have the normal common Java fern here. I do add 1 or 2 pieces of needle leaf Java fern as well, just to add a little bit more texture to the tank, but I'm not really too concerned. My biggest concern was to get some plants in there that'll do their job, keep my water clean, and stay out of the way of those plecos. Now that all my Java fern are in, I've decided to add in some moss. I think no tank is complete without a little bit of moss. So I found just little cuttings of some willow moss that I had. So I'm just using a little bit of super glue, just a tiny little dot of super glue, and popping that moss on there because it sticks like almost straight away. And I'm just popping that on the wood. So I've got 3 places that I popped it: on the big log on the left hand, and then on, of course, my little branch that is falling down. Now hopefully this moss will grow and make sort of like curtains for the plecos to hide in. Finally, I am actually planting something. I'm planting 2 cryptocorums Wentii. I had some pups and I just pulled them out and thought I need to fill these cracks in between the rocks here. So I just popped them in there. Hopefully my plecos won't dig them up. Pray for them, because they might not stay in this tank. They might get dug up and I'll move them. Okay, so we've got the tank up there. It's full now. I'm going to leave it overnight just to settle, and I'll do a water test to make sure everything's good. But other from that, I think it's done. It came up a treat. I basically was happy just to use everything that I had in that old tank, and mostly Java fern, because plecos are plecos. They're going to dig, they're going to swish their tails and make a bit of a mess. So I'm not too stressed about how that hardscape stands up. I think it's going to be moved. I know for a fact that these plecos are going to eat that wood and it's not going to last very long, but I am excited to see what happens and how it degrades in the tank. So I'm happy for them to do what they do and see what happens to the tank. I hope you liked the video, guys. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff for me, and I'll catch you on the next one.